In any case, numbering system. So these are things that are going to follow from the nodal centered kind. Well, this one actually doesn't. So this is going to be a numbering system for the notes. So this is also something I think that is just clearly better. And we'll get into the history as to why the current system is in place and then why we might change it a little bit, meaning there's 12 notes in the musical alphabet. You can see that we have these sharps and flats that are going to be in there, which I've noted a little bit differently than normal. We'll talk more about that later. Now, I don't think we can really remove that completely, and it's kind of nice to have letters for the notes because sometimes when we have all these different numbering systems, it's difficult to identify one numbering system for the other. So I don't think we can, I'm not proposing we remove those entirely, although if you were to create the music system from scratch, you might do that. Right? You might say, I'm just going to make a numbering system of the notes 1 through 11 or 1 through 12. You can argue about what would be the best numbering system. Should I make A0 or should I make C0 or should I make it a 1? Should I make the A the 1? But the basic idea is that we should be able to apply simple math to the system. Why is that useful? Because if I'm moving distance-wise from a C to an A or an A to the C, whatever numbering system I have allows me to do simple math. Well, that's a distance of 4 minus 1, which is 3 steps away. You can't do that with the letters. And with the letters that are currently here, it's even difficult to count up the alphabet because of the sharp and flat issue. And you have the issue of 2 notes for one thing. So that's clearly not optimal. Now, it comes up with some cool things happen from it, like scales have all the letters of the alphabet. You just need to know which ones to sharp and flat. So I'm going to talk more about that in the future, but I would argue that it's clearly the case that some kind of numbering system through the notes and then being able to code switch between your numbering system to the letters will be worth your time because it allows you to do simple math, which is clearly beneficial. So mode numbering system. Modes will be assigned an absolute number 1 through 7 for clarity. So similarly with the modes, we're going to be picking out the modes here. So we have the modes. Now the modes go into the same kind of order. So normally when we look at the modes, the problem is that if I want to think of like the Aeolian, the minor scale, I make this the 1 from a scale-centered system. But what I want to do is say, no, I want to give that an absolute mode number, which I'm going to base on the major scale. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Why is that beneficial? Because once again, the modes all go in the same order. So it's going to be easy for me to then say, if I'm looking at any scale that has 7 modes in it, there's 12 scales with 7 modal nodes in it, and those nodes are in order, then I can do simple math within the mode to see how many modal steps away a particular interval is, for example. And so we'll talk more about that later. So then interval thinking. Now, again, this is going to get into the weeds right now because you might not have a great grasp of intervals in and of themselves, particularly if you're a guitar player, because oftentimes we get mixed up between what an interval means in terms of the shape versus the actual half steps. Now, why is this a problem? Notice that if you're on a piano, it's not as much of a problem. The interval is just going to be the distance between 2 notes. A piano is kind of like you're on one string. So if I went from this note to this note, there'd be a distance of 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps. So I can easily see that on one string. But what if I go from this note to this note? Then it's going to, how do I know how far it is? It's not like a piano that's stacked on top of each other. I have to know there's a distance between the 2 strings of 5 usually, plus 1. So it's a 6 note away distance. So the way the intervals normally work is that we don't tell the half steps. We give it a name based on the relative position of the scale. So here's our scale shapes again. So if I'm in the major scale, I'm looking at the distance between this and the E. It's a third. It's going to be a major third. So we have this major third, minor third, which actually doesn't give you the distance in half steps.